Okay. What a day it's been. Yeah, thank you for those of you that have been here since the morning.
Really?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, we're to our final presentation. It's been an awesome day. As I've been calling it, it's been a variety show. We started with Blake Savoy in the morning, talking about kind of the mindset to health to performance. And then we had Syl Corbett talk about clay, healing powers of clay. And then we had, was my memory being challenged here? Then we had Ramona Ramesset who talked about her GI journey, healing her gut and being on that path. And then it was me, I guess, eh? And we talked about honey being a herbal delivery system. And then we had Alex talking about his philosophies of using local and wild. And now we're going to finish off with some mocktails, some cocktails. And we have Graham Edds Masters of the Buffalo and YYC. So if you've never met Graham, you'll get to in just a second. Somebody that I met last year. He's one of Alex's friends. They're in the same kind of culinary circles. He came on a plant walk with us, and yeah, we hit it off and got to talk plants that afternoon. And he's got quite a setup here. So, all right. So couple of questions people have asked about each of these sessions. The whole thing's recorded. We're going to post it online, and we'll send you the links if you're registered for this session today. And you can catch the replays as well. So we've got about 45 minutes, but we may, depending, let it go a little bit longer. This is the final session of the day, so we can really just, kick back and have fun. And we'll definitely have some samples coming up, bringing together wild foraged ingredients into cocktails and mocktails. Graham's kind of at the forefront of the mocktail and cocktail culture here in Calgary, which is kind of on the rise everywhere. And really the forefront is local and foraged, right? Like that is really what's making it happen. So I'll be kind of up and down, back, forth. We'll get all the samples facilitated and we'll pass it over to you. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Malcolm, and I appreciate this opportunity. So in lieu of a land acknowledgement today, I thought that we may take like 5 minutes to talk about what that actually means. You know, there's a lot of words that are passed, when we talk about land acknowledgement and where we are right now. So I thought I would actually maybe take that to the next level and tie that into a bit of a permaculture perspective and lens, and also where we are right now. So we are, north of the Red Deer River would be Cree territory, and south of that would be Blackfoot territory. So, instead of seeing a bunch of words, I'd like to start with, an acknowledgement of how traditionally on Turtle Island, where we live right now, so that would be North America. So traditionally, this would be the Turtle Island territory, which encompasses many territories and many treaties and many bands. So we're going to start with a small smudge. If you are sensitive to smoke, you might want to leave. I'm not gonna smudge you all personally, but just so you know, there is going to be a little bit of smoke involved in here. Okay, so when we do a traditional smudge, we're going to start from all the directions, which is a nice tie-in to Alex's wheel here in terms of his flavor profiles. The flavor profiles are identical to the medicine wheel in every way. Okay, so when we're starting with a traditional medicine wheel, we're going to start with the East. Okay, so the East is always going to be our spiritual practice. Okay, so spiritually speaking, this is the first incarnation of us being in our bodies, essentially. So we start with the spiritual. The second aspect will be the physical as we enter our bodies. The third aspect will be emotional as we become infants and we start, coming to grips with our emotional capabilities as well. As we become elders, our mental contributions are going to be kind of what's at the forefront. And then it's going to start again with in the East with our spiritual medicine wheel. Okay, so it's going to be a very, very similar stratum to what Alex has actually created here. So we're always going to start and with, this is kind of how we start our medicine wheel in this trajectory. It's always going to end up like that when we're balanced. Okay, so the north, east, south, and west. Okay, so we're going to start with the Eastern medicine wheel is always going to be our spiritual. Okay, so that's the first step is always going to be, we're going to be into our spiritual wheel. The second step always going to be into our physical bodies. Okay, and this actually works really well when we're talking about wellness. It's always going to start with your spiritual body. The second most important thing is going to deal with your physical body. So am I hungry? Am I hangry? That's a big one that everybody runs into a lot, right? So physical medicine wheel, that's going to be the first thing that we're going to want to deal with. Okay. After that, in the South, we're going to deal with our emotional body. So, after we have been birthed into our physical bodies, we're going to have our emotional, we're going to cry. That's the first thing that we're going to ever do, right? So that's us dealing with our emotional medicine wheel. After that, as we move into, being an adult, being an elder, that's going to be more of our mental capacity. Okay, so we're going to deal with, all the stuff that we do as adults, adulting in general. Okay, and then again, we're going to move into the north, which is our spiritual medicine wheel. So I just wanted to touch base with that in lieu of this, land recognition that we normally do today. It's just a lot of words. Doesn't really make sense to people, saying Pekainai and identifying all these tribes that are essentially have just been mandated under colonialism. I would just like us to appreciate what that actually means when we say land recognition. It means that we are recognizing the spiritual practices of this land, and not just this land, all of Turtle Island, which means North America in general. Okay, so this is actually a really interesting, transference from what Alex identified in your traditional flavor wheel. Actually transitions really interesting into your personal medicine wheel. And you'll also notice, it's going to be the 4 seasons. It's going to be the 4 directions. It's going to be, you're going to see that number come up quite a bit, and so just realizing that this, this medicine wheel it transfers more to just indigenous traditional spirituality. It actually transitions into everything in our lives, right? So I just want to take one brief moment and kind of acknowledge that. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So we're gonna start. Oh, sorry, with ice. Can you give me ice? Yeah. And this is actually like a good opportunity to as well to kind of acknowledge, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about permaculture and a lot about, how we can honor the plants and medicines that we're using at every level, essentially. So this is corn husks and tarragon shoots that I've harvested from locals and local places in Calgary and our farm. So I mean, this is just one of kind of the incarnations, as a prayer feather that we can use as and see that not just as indigenous kind of spiritual practices, but also using every part of the plant in every way and honoring that plant, right? So again, this is tarragon and corn husks that I've harvested into a prayer feather. Okay, so I decided that we should probably start with some bartending basics, essentially. So if you are having people come over to your house, and you want to impress them, I thought we would just go over some very preliminary kind of bartending techniques. Okay, so I have 2 cocktails for you today. The first one is going to be a regenerative cocktail. Okay, so the crux of this talk today and this workshop is going to be mixology as medicine, and really what that means is over the last 300 years or so, 200 years really, that modern bartending techniques have mimicked classic medicine teachings. When you talk about bitters is a great example. Everybody has bitters in their house, Angostura bitters or whatever have you. Really what that is code switching for a tincture, right? So what that essentially is going to be a neutral grain spirit decocted into a medicine, essentially. So we think of it as cocktail seasoning. Really what it is a tincture, and that is medicine, really, at the end of the day. Like Angostura bitters, classic bitters from Trinidad and Tobago, made the exact same way for the last 200 years, made from gentian root. What that is essentially is a digestive aid. It's a hangover cure. It aids in so many medicinal processes, but that really has been glossed over, and you've been told that this is a cocktail seasoning or a way of making cocktails taste better. It's medicine. Same thing that any kind of decoction, any kind of infusion that's been made essentially is mimicking traditional indigenous medicine techniques, essentially. So we just want to keep that in mind, that it's easy to think of cocktail culture as something that is us just going out and getting wasted and having a party time. It's not. It is that, but at the root and the fundamental, the way that cocktail bartending actually was born was through medicine and through medicine people. And so essentially what cocktail bartending has done over the last 150 years is mimicked those practices. So I want to really make sure that we all keep that in mind. Something like chartreuse, that has been made the same way for the last 300 years by Carthusian monks in the French Alps, that is actually medicine at the end of the day. Yes, it tastes good and gets you wasted, but at the end of the day, that's good medicine. That's 58 different kinds of herbs and roots and a tincture essentially made for good liver health or kidney health, good digestion, and so forth. So yeah, it's hard to like the last 2 weeks talking to people about having this seminar. It's really hard for people to imagine cocktail culture being important to your health, right? So I'd really like, if anything, for you to take away today that, it's not about party culture. It's not about getting wasted. Really at the end of the day, cocktail culture really was about, mimicking what the medicine people for the last 5,000 years have been doing intuitively. Okay, so as long as we keep that in mind, we will start with some basic bartending techniques. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go a little bit deeper, there's a great book out there called The Drunken Botanist.
Yeah, wonderful book.
Yeah, and it talks about all the kind of classic cocktails and their herbal ingredients and their herbal actions and herbal properties. And of course, today you might be disappointed. We're going to shift it more to the mocktail. So, but we could spike it if you want, Yeah. But the premise is the same. Okay, Amy Stewart is the author of The Drunken Botanist. Yeah.
I really, sorry, I thought I had 15 minutes in between our sessions here, so I would have been more set up, but.
No, you're doing good. You're doing good. We got time afterwards. So yeah,
Perfect.
really have brought so much here to kind of put on display and get us immersed into this culture. So yeah, we're excited.
Perfect. Okay, so that being said, again, like this is the most powerful thing that we have in our retinue as occupants of Turtle Island. We're being North America. Okay, so again, it works with your flavor wheel, your medicine wheel, and it's just a great example of how you can actually balance a cocktail and balance your personal well-being at the same time. So I just wanted to acknowledge how much this actually is, transitory effect from what we think of as fine dining right now, and also, traditional indigenous spirituality, right? Okay, so the first cocktail I wanted to do was regenerative. So that's going to be, for lack of a better word, kind of a hangover cure. It's going to have beet, salt, gentian root. So the homemade root beer here as well. Traditional root beer is going to be sassafras, dandelion root, a couple other things. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. And then I'm gonna kind of fortify that with a little bit of catnip and then citrus stock as well. Okay.
Did I do the wrong thing and heat that up?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it still going?
You want me to?
Yeah, let's go on high.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so general bartending basics. Okay, so when we're talking about a stir drink, it's going to be spirit forward. Okay, so if you are at your home making cocktails for your friends, and I thought that maybe we'd talk about this a little bit if you wanted to, impress your friends with a little bit of bartending techniques. This is the kind of way to go about it. So anything, the rule is that anything that is spirit forward, so only alcohol, you're talking about your martinis, your Manhattans, old fashions, Negroni, those type of things, they're always going to be stirred. We do not want to shake anything that is only spirit, and that goes towards things that are tinctures as well. Okay, when we shake a cocktail that is only spirit, it's going to actually add ice chunks. It's going to create this it's more of a mouthfeel effect that you don't really want to have. Okay, so the nice smooth martinis, nice smooth Negronis. So if it is only alcohol, I like a Negroni is equal parts Campari, sweet vermouth, and gin. We're gonna stir that down. Okay, something that requires syrup, simple syrups, fruit juices. We're going to shake that down. Okay, so it's actually going to create a bit of an emulsification effect when we actually shake that cocktail down, and it's going to change the mouthfeel. Okay, so that's the biggest, basic 101 bartending. If it's spirit forward, only booze, we stir. If it has anything else in it, juices, syrups, whatnot, we're going to actually shake that in order to incorporate all of those ingredients in a way that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with a shaken cocktail. So the most important thing when we're starting so I don't have my glassware in front of me. Oh. Guess I'm missing my glassware.
Can we get you?
Yeah, it's just my glasses.
No, I think that's yours, right, Donna? The red one? Yes. Yeah.
I have them somewhere.
Good.
Just glassware.
Glassware.
Yeah.
Make some jars, can you deal?
Yeah, I guess that will work.
Keep watching that. Okay, Alex is gonna grab some glasses.
I'm sure I had them. Where they went. It's not that important. Okay. So, in lieu of glassware, we're always going to want to make sure that we're icing down our cocktail shakers first. And then we're also want to make sure that any glassware that we're using is iced down as well. Okay, we don't want to be putting a perfectly chilled cocktail into a lukewarm glass that just came out of the dishwasher. Perfect. It's so odd. Aha. Never mind.
Oh, there we go.
Nailed it.
All right. All the props.
Okay, so the first one that we're gonna do is the regenerative cocktail. So we're gonna put this one on the rocks. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're icing down our glassware so it's an appropriate temperature. We're going to be using a dehydrated beet, citric acid, and salt powder that I made. Okay, so this is going to be organic beets, as well as Hascap powder. So locally sourced berry powder. So, Saskatoon berries, Hascap berries are going to kind of be the local one that give you a bit of a tartness to it. So again, hyper focused on the local ingredients. Okay, so that's equal parts Hascap berry, salt, and beet powder. We're going to get a gentian root tincture. Again, this is gentian root that's been grown locally and would be the key component in Angostura bitters. So traditionally, those are made in Trinidad and Tobago. It was okay growing the gentian root out here. It wasn't as awesome as I thought it would be, but at least, it happened. I'm going to put in some there it is. Right. We're going to put in catnip. I just got out of our greenhouse. And then we're going to talk a little bit about citrus stock as well. So we have a little bit going right behind me here. So citrus stock is going to be like a very easy way of using the whole parts of the citrus. So again, when you're working in the restaurant industry, there's going to be a lot of waste. This is very typical of the restaurant industry. We're one of the worst wasters in the world, other than the fashion industry. We throw out straws, single-use plastics all the time. But citrus is going to be one that is extremely damaging in terms of the way it comes to this country. There's a lot of there's a lot of gang activity. There's lots kind of harsh economic reasons that bringing citrus to this country doesn't make a lot of sense. So once it's here, we want to honor that fruit however we can, and part of that is using the whole part, every part of that citrus fruit, right? So a big part of that is making sure that we're zesting the limes before we're using them as cut fruit, and then using anything left over in actually extracting those citrus oils and making a citrus stock from it. So just like you would make a vegetable stock, or a chicken stock, citrus stock is the exact same thing. Okay, so we're going to use every single part of that fruit, anything that's left over at the end of your bar service, and we're actually put that into a stock pot and preserve it that way. Okay. So that's this. Yes. Okay, so with this, if you are adding, even with like a Tom Collins, so Tom Collins would be a very simple classic cocktail. It's gonna be simple syrup, lemon juice, gin, and then top with soda water. I always kind of recommend that we're gonna actually put the soda water, in this case is going to be the root beer, into the shaker tin itself, so that all of those components are going to be equally added through the cocktail itself. Okay. So yeah, that's not nearly sweet enough. So we're gonna do is we're gonna add some beet pear syrup to that. And so again, going back to the medicine wheel, when we know that something is out of balance, it's sweet in this case, we got to go back to the drawing board and make sure that that's balanced. So again, this is going to be more of a regenerative tonic. Okay, so the components in this that I put in thus far is going to be beets. Okay, so they are actually, so I'm just going to take you through the actual benefits of every component in this particular cocktail. Okay, so beets, great for digestive health. It's actually an anti-cancer agent. It helps with your caloric intake. The salt that's going to be in there is going to be great for electrolytes and fluid balance. It's a nutrient carrier and also good for blood pressure, regulating blood pressure. Gentian root, which I have foraged locally. It's good for infections, for swelling, for your for liver health. It's also going to be basically it's a hangover remedy. So if anybody, a classic bartender hangover remedy is basically going to be Angostura bitters in ginger ale. So this is kind of that taken to the next level. Okay, so all those components are going to be in there. All that, that gut health, those good feelings, are going to be there in terms of like making you, headache relief, and also making your stomach feel a little bit better. Root beer that we had here, the local root beer that yeah, there we go, perfect. Typically that's going to be sassafras, dandelion, and burdock root, which is great for throat and cough, digestion, gallstones. And then the catnip is actually going to be good for restlessness, gas, asthma, those types of things. So this is going to kind of be like a holistic tonic in terms of, if you had a rough night, or, if you're hungover, or, just not feeling generally good. This is going to be kind of a cure-all for that. Okay, so again, when we're shaking a cocktail, it's going to be something that's syrupy, having some citrus aspects to it as well, and also in this case we're going to add a carbonated component to it as well. Okay, that'd be the first one.
I can organize the samples here.
Yeah, sounds good.
From here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna rectify that. Yeah.
Now, would this particular drink have a garnish or anything like that you would add, or just serve as is? Looks pretty good.
Yeah, so with this particular guy, let's see. Yeah, so we're gonna do the catnip. So fresh catnip. So again, good for, restlessness, stomach issues, asthma, diarrhea. Also, the Indian mint is also great in those terms. It's just going to be like, a great smell, and just like a very nice even transfer in your gastric intestinal systems.
So yeah, catnip's considered a great nervine, unless you're a cat.
Which makes you go crazy. It's funny that that'd be different. So if you're a fearless cat it's going to make you go a little bit crazy, whereas as humans it has the opposite effect and kind of chills us out. So that's an interesting kind of
Okay, right on. Serve this up for some samples.
Yeah, let me just double check this.
Okay, so you've given me this fancy little thing to pour from, which I assume kind of holds back some of that foam, and the catnip, loose ingredients like that.
Okay, the second one that I kind of wanted to make for you, and again, sorry, this is not nearly as organized as I'd hoped to be. Seemed a lot more organized in my head. But what I wanted to do mostly was emphasize the difference between the two styles of cocktail. So you're always going to have two distinct styles. One's always going to be your stirred cocktails, spirit forward, and your shaken cocktails, which are going to be a little bit more complex. In this case, I wanted to do something that was, fat washed, something that has a little bit more texture and mouthfeel in there as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so this is calendula and red clover coconut oil that I've made from ingredients that we foraged. So I'm gonna do you have a chinoise? So I'm just gonna heat it up over the steam. And so this is going to be more of an uplifting kind of cocktail. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, so this is calendula, Indian mint, and red clover infused in coconut oil. So I'm just going to get that up to temp, bring it into a liquid form. So kind of going back to the mixology as medicine, I guess we haven't really touched too much on that. Again, when we talk about mixology, it comes down to a lot about bitters, comes down to a lot about infusions and like these kind of high level fine dining techniques that that you read about and see in these famous restaurants that are kind of coming up. Essentially what this is a throwback to traditional medicinal techniques. Okay. So essentially anytime you see infusion or even like a tea blend, what they're talking about is a decoction, right? So in this case, we're going to make a calendula decoction. So this is going to be calendula flower. Okay, we're going to do the Indian mint as well in here. This is a wonderful product that's featured here on the Light Cellar. So there's going to be a wild rose syrup. So we're going to use that. So again, I guess I didn't really check in with this. So again, with every cocktail, we want to make sure that your flavor wheel is balanced, right? So we want to make sure that your salt is taken care of, your sweet, bitter, and umami. Yeah. You liked it? Oh, good. Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. So again, I guess I kind of blew past that. So I guess really the crux of what I want to talk to you guys today about is how you use the whole buffalo. So that beet syrup that you are tasting in that cocktail, I used the dregs from those beets. So all the beets that were kind of left over after I cooked them out, I added mustard seed and vinegar that I made at home and made a mustard out of that. And then I took everything that was left over that wasn't appropriate to use in a syrup or anything that you're going to eat, something like a relish, and I dehydrated that and then made it into a powder. Okay, so we made beet, haskap berry, and a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar is going to it. So essentially, what this, I think I really buried the lead here. So the idea is that we're going to start with this beautiful beet. So the beet goes into a beet syrup. The everything that left over from that, I'm going to dehydrate into a beet powder. Maybe I use some of that into and cut it up into chunks and actually make a beet relish. So essentially, the important part is that we're using every part of the plant and honoring that plant in every way that we can possibly do. So that this is going to be kind of the genesis of how that happens. So it started, with this beet mustard. Okay, so I blanched the beets, cut them up, and blend them into a mustard. Okay, so I took everything left over from that and I made it into a beet and pear syrup. So I added sugar to it. So a 50-50, 1-to-1 ratio, simple syrup using beets as the base and then just natural cane sugar. Okay, anything that was left over that, I strained that through something similar to a chinoise here. Okay, everything went through the chinoise. Chinoise went into the dehydrator. Okay, dehydrator, we go through that, and then it goes into a coffee, grinder, essentially. And so added citric acid, sugar, whatever, a little bit of salt. But so this is going to be the genesis of how all of these products kind of came to light, right? So they're all based. Thank you so much. Yeah. So really, if you're going to take anything away from today, from my very fractured presentation, it's going to be that it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how you use it. There's a million ways of accessing the nutrient dense and amazing properties and medicinal properties of all these things. Same thing when we're talking about spirits, so the chartreuse, fernet, all of those are, couple hundred year old spirits that were intended as medicine and have kind of been obfuscated and into this realm where it's just like, let's get fucked up, and that's fine too. There's a realm for that. But at the end of the day, this is powerful medicine that we're talking about, and paying homage to the plant itself, and the medicinal properties are kind of like that next step that we need to do. And kind of taking that back to land recognition as well. This is the best way that I can think of honoring the land that we occupy, is that taking these traditional medicines and indigenous plant species that exist here already, and amplifying them into something that's actually powerful, man. And even when you're drinking a chartreuse cocktail, you're having a last word, amazing cocktail, it's great. It's also, you are getting drunk, but you are also, in the meantime, activating some very, very powerful medicine. So I think, like I said, there's maybe two things that I'd like you to take away from today, is that every part of the plant is medicine and should be honored. And, when we are, drinking these, cocktails, you're drinking an Amaro, you're drinking a fortified wine, all of this is really, is code word for medicine and traditional and indigenous use of these plant species, Okay, so let's go into a more uplifting cocktail. So what we have in here, we have the calendula. So again, it's great for circulation, great for women's health. If you, we won't go into too many details there, but it's great for that. I'm going to do some more, just a little bit of the catnip as well. So wild rose, again, already added a little bit. I think there's a bit more, but yeah, there's going to be vitamin C in here. So wild rose extract with a little bit of sugar, good for sore throats, good for cold and flu season. It's going to be a pink shrub, so a gastrique. So this is vinegar that I made using, again, locally sourced plants. So if you ferment, you can ferment and distilling are kind of be your two most powerful tools in terms of preserving plants. This is another way of preserving that plant material and kind of making it work for you. So this is going to be a beet vinegar that I made. Also, kind of known as gastrique. Somebody would, some people would call it a shrub. Now, shrub would be the most, accessible term. It was going to be a sweeter drinking vinegar that's also good for your kind of gut health and antimicrobial. We're going to do fresh sage in here as well. So, really great for heartburn. It's an antidepressant. There's a lot of new information saying it's good for Alzheimer's disease and preventing that as well. Good for your memory as well. So it's just, again, taking it back to the indigenized kind of learning, sage is one of the fundamental sacraments, the four sacraments, tobacco being the most important one when we're offering our thanks, sage being more of a medicinal one for us, cedar and sweetgrass. So again, some of those being for smudges, some of them being for actual health reasons. Okay, so what we're going to do here, so we've added the beet simple syrup. We've added the wild rose tincture. We've added calendula. And so what we're doing here is taking a calendula and red clover coconut oil that I've made, and we're going to fat wash this particular cocktail. So what that means is that, you know, in a lot of, it's in some senses, when you hear about fat washing, it means that they are going to be taking color out, and actually straining. So basically you put whole milk in, add some sort of citrus, and it's going to clot. It's going to clump up, and then you're going to actually strain that out, and that's going to make a clarified product. So a clarified fat wash is a little bit different than what we're doing here. So a clarified cocktail generally means you're going to take a whole fat milk and curdle it, and then take out the color and add a little bit of mouthfeel. Whereas this technique is more about adding fat and then adding mouthfeel / texture into the cocktail itself. So we're gonna add a little bit of that. So again, with this, I want to make a small batch. We want to make sure it tastes right. Okay. And then what we're going to do is actually make a full batch of it. So again, this is going to be the gastrique. So this is going to be a beet vinegar that I made. We're going to do a little bit of the beet syrup as well. Okay. Wild rose tincture.
Yeah, that's precious stuff. All goes, and it goes.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the red clover.
Wow. Okay, amazing.
So what essentially we are making here is traditional medicine people would call a decoction. You know, essentially it's tea. You know, so a tincture is going to be alcohol based. It's going to be, you know, denatured in neutral grain spirit, which we also have represented here. And then an infusion is, you know, when you say, you know, an infused Aperol, you know, they infused hops in Aperol together. Essentially what we're talking about is decoction. So again, all of this is very, very standard practice in terms of traditional medicine making. So once we've actually added the ice to it, it's going to coagulate quite quickly. Okay. So we'll see how much we actually get out of there as a yield.
It looks like we're down to 10% battery on the phone, so.
Okay.
Wow. Look at that. Well, I'm a complete amateur when it comes to cocktails, so seeing you add oil, that's a concept new to me.
Yeah, so this is a traditional fat wash. It's just done in an expedited way. So again, that's going to add, not only is going to add the components from the red clover and the calendula that was infused into coconut oil, it's actually going to take a little bit of the color away, make it a bit of a more like a hay color, and it's also going to create this interesting mouthfeel effect. Okay, so this again, you know, it's not like crazy high level concepts with cocktails, but again, you know, those are kind of the fundamentals when we're talking about how cocktails are presented. You know, so anything that is going to be you know, with syrup or citrus, or, you know, something that's a little bit more shaken, or on, you know, a tall cocktail like your Tom Collins, this is going to be the procedure you use. Whereas something that's going to be spirit forward, again, there's no actual booze in here, but we've stirred, you know, fairly neutral components together in a way that's going to give a very, very clean aspect to it. Okay, so the reason putting the oil back into it is actually going to give you that very rich, velvety kind of mouthfeel. Okay. Okay. Good. So I guess we'll try to make enough cocktails here. I was hoping to make some citrus stock for you guys as well. It didn't quite work out. Just a quick note on this, you know, if you have your lemons and limes, they're kind of left over. It's an amazing use of those scraps to actually make a citrus stock out of that. So essentially, the best process. I actually brought some like apples that weren't really great. So, you know, it's always equal parts. So if you had, let's say, like 10 Granny Smith apples that make up a liter when you cut them up, it would be like a liter of water to a liter of your chopped apples. We're gonna reduce that down for about half an hour. If you have the lemons and limes and oranges left over as well, so if you had like kind of like little scraps of this and that, you want to boil them for about 5 minutes. Okay, so you don't want to boil them to death. Essentially, what you want to do is strip them of their oils. Okay, after that, after they've had their 5 minutes, we're going to strain that completely. Add citric stock, so a 5% solution with citric acid. Again, you know, there's different kinds of acid for different kinds of fruit. Apples, generally malic acid. Citric acid for the citrus fruit. So because, you know, if I were to use the apples in here, it would be more citric or malic acid forward. I'd probably adjust it with about 5% citric acid as well. Okay, so that's. I wish I had more time to talk about citrus stuff. If you have the opportunity, go to trashtiki.com. They have all of those recipes. So this is actually quite a well-established philosophy in bartending circles. It's called Trash Tiki. Yeah. They've actually rebranded a little bit in the last couple of years. I'm not sure if they're actually calling themselves Trash Tiki, but if you look up citrus stock or Stuice, STUICE, you will have a plethora of kind of recipes and ways of maximizing your citrus, you know, instead of throwing it in the garbage, just using it as an alternative way of creating bitterness in your cocktail, in your food. You'd use it as lemon juice substitute, lemon, lime, whatever, right? So again, that's really, you know, at the end of the day, that's the only thing I really want you to take away from this, that every part of that vegetable, every part of that plant, it's valuable. It has medicinal uses, and we're not, you know, we're beyond this point where where bar culture is just a thing to go get trashed. You know, we have to start thinking about how that impacts our health, how these things are actually valuable. And it's not just a recreation tool. This is actually, you know, medicine that has been, you know, co-opted in a way to be entertainment, but its actual core value is our health, you know, and that's the most important thing, you know, and actually maximizing those values wherever we can. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. I think we're gonna do a little bit more to kind of get it passed around.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions for Graham, feel free. And then the whole buffalo. Well, this is really quickly about that, where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so we have a small farm outside of in Crossfield. We traditionally have been doing some organic vegetables using ancient irrigation techniques, using a lot of clay pots, while using wicking systems, and all organic as well. So yeah, we're not using traditional means or monocropping in order to get the yields that we want. So essentially, we have a very small selection of vegetables and produce that we use to make these very bespoke products. This is a good example. I made some chiso and cherry pitch bitters. So again, at the end of the day, bitters is code switching for a tincture. Infusion is the same thing as decoction. So kind of turning those what now we see as traditional bartending, classic bartending techniques, actually realizing that those are going to be the ways that medicine has been made for the last 10,000 years, especially on Turtle Island, using and really leaning into those foraged and indigenous species and using them as medicine as well as flavoring agents and making really good cocktails. So
Cool. Well, thank you to everybody that been here this afternoon and all day.
twbyyc.ca. Same with
TBWYYC.
yeah, twbyyc.ca or twbyyc is going to be all our social medias as well. So at twbyyc would be our Instagram. twbyyc is going to be our web site.
All right, well, let's give it up for Graham and all of our presenters.
Yeah.